Hello and welcome to Movies You Missed podcast. I'm V.
I'm John.
And we are two industry veterans who've been friends since we were kids, and we love to recommend movies without spoiling them.
Not one spoiler here. If you do find one, let us know, but I doubt you will.
We are pretty big sticklers for it.
Oh, yeah.
Although I would be happy if our audience kept us honest.
Absolutely.
How you doing this week, John?
I'm doing good, V. How are you doing today? I'm actually very energized for this episode because these are great movies.
I think it was perfect levity after our political episode and Thanksgiving. Lightened us up a little bit, got a good laugh.
Oh yeah, can't wait to discuss these two.
But before we do, as you all know, we love to discuss the movies we saw in theaters this week.
Yeah!
And John, I believe you went more than once.
I did, actually. This was a fun evening and afternoon at the movies. Over the course of 24 hours, I actually saw 3 movies in the movie theater.
Damn, goals.
Yeah, right? I don't want to keep our audience in suspense anymore. If you have seen the reel on Instagram, you know which movies I saw. Saturday night, I went and saw the new Alexander Payne directed, Paul Giamatti, Divine, Joy Randolph, and Dominic Sessa led The Holdovers. I saw this trailer several months ago, and I was pretty much sold because it's Paul Giamatti, and anything that he is in, I will always give a shot because he's such a fantastic actor.
I love him too.
Yeah, he's great. He's in one of my favorite movies, Sideways, also directed by Alexander Payne. Very entertaining movie. It's got some intense moments, just, as a slice of life scenario, but there's also a lot of very funny moments as well. So if anybody's curious about that one, I'm not sure how much longer it's going to be in theaters. It was myself and I think 8 other people in the theater on Saturday night to see it, but I would definitely give that one a shot if you're a Paul Giamatti fan and if you even like Sideways.
Okay.
Have you seen Sideways?
No.
Ah, well, it's on the list, and we might do that one soon, because we're going to stick to comedy for a little bit, I believe.
Okay, well, I do love Sandra Oh. However, I never wanted to watch it because I grew up in the wine country, and so pretentious tourists coming into the wine country, it was like the antithesis of what I'm interested in watching, because I see it every day.
I gotcha. That makes sense.
But I've heard it's a good film.
It is. I very much enjoy it.
I do love Thomas Hayden Church, too, so.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And Virginia Madsen. It's definitely a very good cast.
It's a great cast. I'll watch it.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. And then you did a double feature on Sunday.
Sunday, fun day. I went and saw the new film written and directed by Emerald Fennell. If anybody doesn't know her by name, she is the Oscar-winning screenwriter for writing Promising Young Woman, which I saw and I enjoyed. I thought it was a pretty intense and also pretty twisted flick. Mm-hmm. So I was... Oh, you saw it? I wasn't sure if you had seen that one.
I saw it once because that's about as many times as you can watch that film.
Yeah, I have definitely only seen it once, but it turned me into a Carey Mulligan appreciator. Like, I thought she actually held that movie together very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and saw Saltburn, starring Barry Keoghan and Rosamund Pike. So I went into Saltburn thinking that the trailer was kind of similar to The Holdovers. It was going to not obviously tell you the whole movie, but be what, the trailer made the movie out to be, and unfortunately that really wasn't the case. Maybe only in my eyes, I don't know. I heard a lot of groans throughout watching that movie in the audience, and I enjoyed the first 45 minutes very much. I was really getting into it. I thought the characters were pretty well developed, and then, the weird stuff kind of starts happening, and we don't spoil anything here at Movies You Missed podcast, but I'm going to tell you right now, I really would love to spoil this to kind of just really let people know what this movie's about, but I'm not going to do that. If you have seen the film Killing of a Sacred Deer, it is very reminiscent of that movie. And again, this movie, Saltburn, is over 2 hours. And it was about the last 30 minutes I kept kind of thinking, like, when is this going to end? Like, is this going to finally get to some sort of finale? And again, there were things I liked about it. There were things I didn't. On the reel, I believe I gave it like a 5.5 out of 10. Barry Keoghan was great. No problems there. I actually enjoyed Rosamund Pike in this movie. So the performances were good, just the movie wasn't there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And from the trailers, I got a sense of actually it being a lot like either The Talented Mr. Ripley or Triangle of Sadness is the vibe I got.
That is a very interesting take, because I have only seen Talented Mr. Ripley once, and I remember not hating it. I've seen Triangle of Sadness once, and I hated it.
And you hated it.
But again, I think that's actually a very good take on it, too, because it has a lot of slow burn action, and I don't know. I think the reveal just kind of either came too late or too early. I really don't know. Like I said, I felt like it was a little bit long. And again, if you're interested in seeing it and you like Barry Keoghan, especially when he was in Banshees of Inisherin, you can check the movie out. But I would have been fine waiting for streaming for this one.
Okay.
And then I finally ended the weekend with seeing the new Disney animated feature film, Wish. I don't know. I was very... Yeah, I gotta be completely honest. I was very, very let down with that movie. I think I got my hopes up too much. I don't know. It did not hit for me emotionally at all. I felt like the movie could have benefited from another 10 or 15 minutes of like exposition storyline a little bit more. Everything felt like it happened really, really fast and not like in an authentic timeline, I guess, in a Disney movie. And I think it could have benefited from deleting 2 or 3 songs. Like it almost felt like every 3 minutes there was a new song. And now, while that's fine, if the songs are good, and there's, I think, 2 out of the like 6 or 7 in this movie that I was like, yeah, that was good. Animation is spectacular. Asha is a great new Disney addition, and I think Ariana DeBose really kills her voice, especially the song This Wish. But yeah, I left the movie very underwhelmed, and it's still beautifully animated, and I think it's worth seeing if you're interested in seeing it.
So what you're saying is you wish it was better.
Ha ha! Wow. Yeah. That is hilarious. I actually refrained from using wish, I think, completely subconsciously because I didn't want to sound ridiculous, but I wish it was better.
I'm happy to take that mantle. That was awesome. It's fine.
Now, there were some really cool moments of nods to old Disney movies, but again, I guess I expected more.
How is Chris Pine singing?
Actually, not terrible.
Okay.
Not terrible at all.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, and again, I'm just my opinion. And again, if you want to see it, check it out. There were moms and daughters there that seemed to really like it.
Aw.
So that is what I saw. V, I believe you saw some stuff.
I did. I stayed home this week, but I did see 2 new movies on streaming. They are available if anybody wants to watch them. First, I watched a Netflix documentary titled The Deepest Breath.
Ooh.
It is about freediving, which is that competition where people dive as far as they can down in the ocean on one single breath without any equipment and then come back up. And it's insane. And I'm saying this as a former motorcycle racing stunt woman. I think this sport is insane. More power to them. I respect that they're passionate about it, but there is no way I would ever try any of this.
No, it sounds, I can feel my vertigo already coming on. I haven't even seen a frame of this movie.
And I love scuba diving, and there is no way in hell I'd ever do this. But the documentary is actually fascinating. It was very informative, especially about a sport I didn't really know much about, and I still found it interesting, even though it's a sport I wouldn't try or want to do. It was still a fascinating documentary. It still kept my attention and was really intense, and I had a lot of anxiety because all these cameras follow these people down like 100 meters.
Oh, jeez. No,
They take a breath on the surface, dive down, and hold their breath the entire time when they go down to 100 meters and then come back up.
Wow.
But it's beautifully shot. Like I said, it's fascinating. And so I did really enjoy myself and highly recommend it. It's called The Deepest Breath on Netflix if you have a subscription. And then the second movie I watched is actually a foreign film.
Really?
I'm going to just make this blanket statement. The French make gorgeous movies.
Oh, yeah. They most definitely do.
For anyone who's been listening to us for a while, they know we've picked several French movies, including Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Yes.
This is The Three Musketeers.
Oh.
It is the 2023 version of this story. It's in French. It's shot in French. All French actors, including Vincent Cassel.
Hey.
And it's a 2-parter, so the second part's coming out in a couple weeks, actually.
Oh, wow.
And it is a retelling. For any of us who are millennials, of course, we're probably fans of the Disney version, The Three Musketeers, starring Kiefer Sutherland and Charlie Sheen, Chris O'Donnell, and of course, Oliver Platt.
Oh, of course, Oliver fucking Platt.
Who makes that movie.
So awesome. Yes, he definitely does.
I'm going to pick that movie at some point. It's so goddamn good.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
Tim Curry being the bad guy. Just classic.
Definitely.
And so, if you are like us and have seen that movie previously, you know the story of the Three Musketeers. It is a classic story, and so this movie feels familiar. However, it is the French version of it, and it's so beautiful and poetic. I love the dialogue. It was subtitled, of course.
Yes.
But it was beautiful, and so was all the scenery. There are a bunch of drone or helicopter shots of them galloping across the French countryside that, of course, is beautiful.
Nice.
And I had a lot of fun with it. And remember, Rebecca De Mornay is kind of the bad spy in The Three Musketeers, right?
Yeah.
Eva Green is that character.
Ooh, nice.
Vesper from Casino Royale
Ah.
is the femme fatale in this movie, and she speaks French fluently.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
She's great in this movie, too. And so, yes, I had a lot of fun with it, and I highly recommend it. It's currently rentable on Apple TV and a couple other streaming services. And like I said, it's a two-parter. The next one's coming out in a couple weeks. It was shot concurrently. It was shot in 120 days.
Oh, wow.
All on location.
Damn,
Only
that's badass.
One day of filming's in a studio. Everything else is on location, including these gorgeous palaces. So anyway, I had a lot of fun with it. Highly recommend it. I will certainly follow up with our audience and let you know what I thought of part 2, but I'm very excited for it now.
That's awesome. I am going to have to look that one up for sure.
Yeah. Always love an opportunity to expand my foreign film collection.
Hell yeah.
And so those are the 2 movies I watched this week.
Very cool. I will check The Three Musketeers out, but not the other one.
Fair.
Sounds terrifying.
It was... I had a lot of anxiety throughout most of it. That's true.
I'll bet. Damn.
Yeah, so whether you want to go to the theaters or stay at home, those are the movies that we recommend this week.
Awesome indeed.
Or not, apparently.
Or not, yeah.
And just like every week, we pick 2 movies to recommend and discuss. And the topic we picked this week was female-led high school comedies.
Hell yeah.
And because of Why Film, I was really inspired to do a high school comedy episode based on famous plays.
Oh, sweet. I think mine is just based off of life.
It is. I know that I've picked Easy A before, which was based on The Scarlet Letter, a famous book. But remember in the 90s, there was that whole string of movies that were based on Shakespeare plays and stuff?
Oh, hell yeah.
10 Things I Hate About You.
Oh, yeah, Taming of the Shrew.
She's the Man.
12th Night.
Right? So yeah, maybe we do an episode of high school comedies based on famous literature.
There we go. I don't mind that idea at all.
Great. Well, I'm really excited about the comedies this week. Yours is not based on a piece of famous English literature, but it is, I think, based on a famous comedy that you've discussed on this show, actually.
Oh, yes.
So, John, you want to tell everybody what you picked this week?
Why not? We're talking about it already.
Take it away.
All right, I shall. I chose a film that I mentioned last week that I watched on a plane because I did not get a chance to see this in theaters, which I would have loved to, but I had a great time watching it on the plane. I watched it again several months later. I think this is my 4th time actually watching this movie. It's very entertaining. I laughed my entire ass off watching this flick. I'm talking about the 2019 Booksmart. This film stars Beanie Feldstein, Caitlin Dever, Jessica Williams, Will Forte, Lisa Kudrow, Skylar Gisondo, Billy Lord, and Noah Galvin. This film is written by a handful of hilarious female writers: Emily Halpern, Sarah Haskins, Susanna Vogel, and Katie Silberman. This is also the directorial debut of Olivia Wilde, who we have discussed multiple times on this podcast here. I love this fucking movie. This movie cracks me up. I actually get quite emotional in certain moments of this movie. I think both of these ladies are fantastic. Just a great all-around high school comedy. Coming out, again, in 2019, 10 years after Superbad, which... there's a lot of similarities.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not necessarily a carbon copy, but there are a lot of similarities. There are some scenes that are almost a mirror image from scenes in Superbad, but this is through the female lens now instead of the male lens, which I actually really thought was refreshing. So here's a quick breakdown of Booksmart for you, for those of you that have not seen this movie. No spoilers here, but the movie begins with Amy and Molly. They are on their way to their last full day of school, high school to be exact. They're graduating tomorrow, and they're about to go off on their separate journeys. this already begins very similarly to Superbad, not because one's picking up the other, but because both of them after graduation are going to go their separate ways, and that's a little sad, especially since, they're best friends and they've grown up together and they've done just about everything together. They know each other's secrets, they have their own code words. So these ladies go to school. Molly's the valedictorian. She's got the grades. She's going to Yale. And Amy's taking a gap year. She's going to go spend a year in Africa, Botswana. And Molly is pretty much a little bit of a pretentious character as well, because not only is she going to Yale, but she thinks she's the only one that's actually going to be going to a prestigious college. And she ends up finding out that a lot of the people that she's been writing off the entire high school career of hers are actually going to be going to some pretty awesome schools as well. So what happens? Molly and Amy decide that they're going to show these classmates of theirs that they actually are fun. They're not just bookworms, Booksmart, if you will, and decide that they're going to hit up this one last party and have a blast before they graduate the next day. One thing leads to another. Shenanigans begin. They end up running into a whole bunch of people, which is always entertaining. Oddly enough, they run into their principal because he's also an Uber driver, which I thought was pretty entertaining. I don't like Jason Sudeikis at all, but he did make me chuckle in this movie. This was around the time that him and Olivia Wilde were together.
Yes.
So, of course, he would have to be in the movie, and that's fine. I get it. Nothing against you, Olivia Wilde. I just don't like Jason Sudeikis.
Neither does she, so
apparently you don't either, so hey, we're on the same page. There's also this one character who he cracks me up every time I see him. He's a great actor, Skylar Gisondo. He was Gideon in The Righteous Gemstones, if you've ever watched that show on HBO with Danny McBride and John Goodman. Hilarious show.
Yes, he plays Danny McBride's son in that show.
That's right, yes.
He also is in the remake of Vacation with Ed Helms.
Oh, I never saw that one.
It was actually pretty funny.
That's what I heard about it. I like Ed Helms.
And Skylar was really good in that movie, too.
Awesome. Well, he's the rich kid, and of course he's been trying to hang out with Molly for a very long time and just kind of shower her with all his richness and his money and his cars
but not douchey.
No, definitely not. I that was the one thing I remember when I first watched this movie. I was like, I kind of like this guy,
Me too. Yeah, he because it took me a while to realize that he was the rich kid, because he's driving in this old Firebird and he doesn't seem, he's wearing Ed Hardy and all this bullshit, but he just seems like kind of a dweeb who just really wants friends.
Yeah.
Which I thought as an audience member was actually kind of endearing.
Oh, definitely. And I think Skylar really brought a great energy to the character of Jared. Mm-hmm. And we also find out that he's got a sister, played by Billie Lourd, who, I got to tell you, she might be one of the best scene stealers of Booksmart on top of Beanie and Caitlin.
She was my favorite part of this whole entire movie.
Her part of Gigi was actually a lot smaller in the original script, but on set, she was having so much fun with the character that the writers decided to write more scenes for her. So I really liked that. Just about everywhere that Molly and Amy went, Gigi was there. And they were like, where did you come from? Where the hell have you been? And of course,
so
she's super outspoken. She's very boisterous. She's also a little bit, twisted up in the head. She's enjoys her drugs, although Jared thinks they're her vitamins, which I thought was also hysterical. He's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. It's her vitamins. At one point, the girls end up getting some of these vitamins sprayed all over them.
Cocaine.
And they don't want to inhale. Yeah, definitely cocaine in the Altoids box. And Gigi at one point gives them strawberries, and we find out later that it was ayahuasca, and they end up having one hell of a trip. It was this stuff called Asian Waska that really, took a long time to kick in. So hours after Gigi separates from Amy and Molly is when things start to really take over in their brains, and Gigi's like, oh yeah, here we go, we're gonna have a great trip. And that trip is actually a fantastic sequence in this movie. No spoilers here. This is one of those things that you got to see for yourself, because we just will not do it justice here.
That's true. And John, who is Billie Lourd's mother?
Billie Lourd's mother was the fantastic Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, of course. Billie Lourd was in the last few Star Wars movies, but Billie Lourd is also, if you've ever watched Scream Queen Season 2, she was in that. and a whole handful of other things. American Horror Story. She was in that movie Ticket to Paradise that you and I both were not the biggest fans of. Oddly enough, Caitlin Deaver's also in that movie.
Yes.
And I've had the pleasure of working with Billie Lourd on Scream Queens Season 2, as I've mentioned before with Jamie Lee Curtis and John Stamos. Billie Lourd is actually a real badass off camera as well. I very much enjoyed working with her. My wife got to meet her at the wrap party, and seemed like they had a great time. I really wasn't involved in their conversation. I was actually kind of busy hanging out with Taylor Lautner. Yes, I'm name dropping, but that's how you do it if you're an industry veteran like we are here. But yeah, Billie Lourd is really awesome. I think one of my favorite days on set was we had a burger truck for lunch. So everybody had burgers and fries. About 3-4 hours later, Billie comes up and goes, "Hey, John, are you hungry?" I'm like, oddly enough, I kind of am. She goes, "You want some In-N-Out?" I was like, "Well, we're going to wrap in like an hour." She goes, No, I'll have it delivered. Do you want a double and fries? I'm like, fuck yeah, I want a fucking double and fries. So I had 2 burgers and 2 fries that day. And, having Billie Lourd buy us dinner was fucking awesome.
That's great.
So for the rest of this movie, these girls are, trying to show their classmates that they're really, really fun people. They're not bookworms. They're trying to get to this party very similarly to Superbad. I think also another favorite moment of mine is they're trying to find the address to this party, and they just can't do it. So what do? They go to the library, and they try and research how to find this address, and then they find out, of course, that they've been ordering pizza. So they go to the pizza place, and they try and take the delivery guy hostage, which was
scene.
So fantastic. Cracked me the fuck up. And again, I just watched this movie again, and I had tears just streaming down my face. I think I texted Juvie. I was like, I am dying over here.
Yeah.
This movie is just completely killing me. And on top of that, we find out that Amy, played by Caitlin Deaver, had come out about 2 years ago to her friend Molly as a lesbian. And Amy's got a crush on this girl in school named Ryan. And, of course, let's go to the party and maybe you can hook up with Ryan. And Molly's got a crush on Nick, who's played by Mason Gooding, who is actually Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son.
No fucking way.
Yeah, I actually got him confused with the guy from Gran Turismo for a minute. I was like, no shit! And then when I was doing my research, like, oh, that's definitely not him. But yeah, Mason Gooding played Nick in this movie. He was in the last few Scream installments. He played Chad. And I'm going to be honest with you, I thought it was kind of ridiculous that he made it after all the stabbings.
I love that he always makes it.
It was just kind of ridiculous, but it kind of falls along. Yeah, it kind of falls along the line of the original campiness of the original Scream. But yeah, I liked Mason Gooding in this movie. Yeah, he plays Nick. Molly's got a crush on him. So if they get to this party, maybe Molly and Nick can hook up. Maybe Amy and Ryan can hook up. It becomes the Superbad situation, in through the female lens, which is great and refreshing. I love the other side of things, because it makes me think back to high school, like, were there any girls that were going to the party because I was there? And probably not, but that's okay.
Oh, probably. I bet there were.
Yeah, you never know. And we will never know because I've been out of high school for far too long.
Yes. And John, Molly, played by Beanie Feldstein, who's she?
Oh, yeah, she actually is the younger sister of Jonah Hill, who is Seth in Superbad.
That's
everybody.
Right.
So if you did not know that about these two and how this movie also coincides with Superbad, there you have it.
That's right. And their older brother was the manager of Maroon 5.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I had no idea.
So they're all sorts of connected.
Indeed. And V, I know that you actually had not seen Booksmart until this episode came around, so I'm curious what you thought.
That is true, and my older sister Amber loves this movie and loves to talk about it and recommend it, and so I've been meaning to get to it. I'm really glad that you finally made me. I really enjoyed it. I laughed really hard through a good chunk of this movie. I love Caitlin Deaver. She was in this incredible miniseries on Netflix called Unbelievable, which I think is incredible. It also stars Toni Collette. Highly recommend it.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Now that you mentioned Toni Collette, I remember when that came out. I never watched it, though.
Yeah, it's a hard watch, but very, very good.
Oh.
And this movie, though, is hilarious. And there were several scenes where I was like, oh, no, that's my favorite scene. No, this is my favorite scene. The conversation in Amy's bedroom with Molly about was so funny. I'm not going to spoil it, but goddamn, I was laughing so hard.
Oh, yes. That sequence is pretty goddamn hilarious.
Yes. And as you mentioned, the part where they try to stick up the pizza delivery guy, and I just loved where he's like, dude, I'm a stranger. Do you have any protection? You don't know who I am. The freeway's right there. I could have taken you away.
I could have taken you over state lines.
Yeah, God, that was
like,
so
do you
funny.
have a gun? And Molly's like, do we have a gun? She goes, and then Amy's like, I think it would be a felony if we did.
Yeah, exactly. And there's such little nerds, and I absolutely loved it. But actually, another great scene made this movie stand out was when Molly is in the bathroom and she tries to insult all these kids who are partiers, who are the popular ones. And she's saying how she's going to Yale next year. And I was like, yeah, get him, because I was super unpopular in high school. So I was like, yeah, she's going to get him back and tell him what for. And then the three kids are like, well, I'm also going to Yale next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got an offer from Google. It's mid-six figures. Yeah, I'm playing soccer at Stanford. And like all of them are not losers. They're not going to be stuck in this town. And the wind has just been taken out of her. And I just love how it completely turned that trope on its head.
I completely agree with that, too. When I first saw this, I was like, oh, cool, they aren't just dumb fucking high school kids, you know? Of course they come off that way, but they also knew how to have fun, and that was one of those things that I liked about when Molly Gordon, who plays AAA, comes up, gets up in Molly's face, and she goes, we didn't care only about school, you know? And it was like one of those moments where, of course, yeah, Booksmart is the name of the movie. So Molly and both Amy they're very smart women. They're very, they're ready to go off into the world. And like you said, it's a trope that's been completely turned on its head, and it worked.
Yeah, and so none of these kids were playing stereotypes in this movie, which I really liked.
Right. Yeah.
But goddamn, Gigi, played by Billie Lourd, was my favorite part of this whole movie. Every scene she's in, I was laughing.
Oh, she was so great.
She was so good.
She actually was planning on doing that jump off of the boat at that one point in the movie. The producers ended up talking her down from doing that because the water that they were going to have her jump into, or that she wanted herself to jump into, was incredibly filthy. And they told her that she would actually have to wear a tampon so she didn't catch any kind of infection. Yeah, isn't that fucked up? So Billie Lourd was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not going to do it. So they ended up getting Heidi Pascoe, who was a professional cave diver, to do that stunt for her.
Oh my God. Was that like San Pedro Harbor or something?
I think it was, because this was shot all over Glendale and Pasadena.
Yeah.
Like this is, if you've ever been in any of those cities, all of these locations, very similarly to Superbad, were yours and my backyard, V. At one point, they have to go to the police station, and that police station I've actually shot also in, and I've destroyed it because it was a huge massacre scene that I shot for a TV show that I did with Wesley Snipes years ago called The Player that only lasted 9 episodes. They were so over budget on every episode, and we did 19-hour days. It was such brutality.
Well, I actually used to live in Glendale, and you came over to my apartment a couple times to watch movies.
Indeed. Rock and Rolla was one of them.
That's right.
Yes. Now, I mentioned that this was Olivia Wilde's directorial debut. I got to tell you, she killed it. I thought that this was absolutely fantastic. Olivia Wilde actually encouraged a lot of the cast to rewrite a lot of the dialogue in case it didn't feel authentic enough to them.
Oh.
So I actually thought that was pretty awesome because I've directed a few things. I'm like, deliver the line how you would say it. And there's a lot of that, like, well, my character wouldn't do that, or would my character do this? Like when I was on Ray Donovan, I was walking by Liev Schreiber, and he was talking to the writer of the episode, and he goes, now, would Ray do this, or would Ray do that? And I'm thinking as I'm walking away, like, dude, do it how you would do it. Like, isn't Ray your character? Like, you're creating that character. Yes, the character is fictitious, but you're the one giving the performance for the audience and for the camera. How would you react? Try it a bunch of different ways. Now, of course, I wasn't directing that episode. That would have been awesome. But I really like that Olivia Wilde let them explore the dialogue and the characters. And another very cool thing, which when I directed one of my older shorts, I had these two actresses, Angie, a very good friend of mine, Angie, and this other actress, Kat. I was like, hey, I want you both to like go out and like have dinner, go out and have drinks, like get to know each other for like, at least once or twice before we start shooting this stuff. So you can get build a rapport so you don't seem like strangers, and Beanie and Caitlin ended up living together for 10 weeks during the production of this movie. Yeah, so, but I just like that there is that building of the relationship instead of like, oh, let's do a table read and then, we'll direct you on set. Like, go hang out with each other, get to know each other, tell each other your life story, be there for each other. And that was another cool thing that I liked about both of their characters is that they really were incredibly supportive of each other. It wasn't one of those, similar to The Spy Who Dumped Me. There's just complete support for both characters for each other. Susanna Vogel was one of the writers on this movie, who actually was one of the writers on The Spy Who Dumped Me. So I thought that was really cool and a nice little way to bring both of those movies together as well.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines in the movie is when Molly's getting really down on herself and Amy says, "Don't talk about my best friend that way."
Right? Yeah, that was really nice. And I like when they both come out in their new, like, in different clothing, like they see each other for the first time. Just listen to this.
I have no breath.
Excuse me?
Sorry, what?
I have nowhere to go with this. It's too perfect.
You are literally glowing.
You've hit the level of perfection, and now you stole my heart? I've just come out of the water. You're fresh from the water. You're a mermaid. You're here.
How are you so fucking shiny?
Can you fetch me an inhaler? Because I can't breathe.
My eyes.
I'm physically unable.
My eyes hurt so bad from your beauty.
Excuse me, ladies. There's a party to get to.
I will.
Olivia Wilde and the writers have also said that Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Dazed and Confused, and the 1995 masterpiece with Alicia Silverstone, Clueless, was an inspiration for this movie, and we're going to be talking about Clueless very soon.
We are.
This movie premiered at the South by Southwest Film Festival on Olivia Wilde's 35th birthday, which I thought was quite serendipitous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The first draft of this movie was actually written, get this, in 2009. I wonder if they saw Superbad and were like, let's do something similar. And 10 years later, we now have Booksmart.
I'm so glad it was made 10 years later, though, because these young women, it's so updated, it's so fresh. These young women can talk about things that they never would have been able to talk about in a 2009 comedy, especially as women. They talk about sex. They talk about being a lesbian. It's a very female-empowered, sex-positive movie, and I really appreciate that. It's not something we see all the time. You know, as we've talked about, we usually see male-led comedies, and that made me so happy.
Yeah, similar to Bridesmaids. You know, there's that moment in Bridesmaids, which I think is hilarious, when they're at lunch and they're talking about, you know, oral sex and stuff like that. I thought in this movie it was very entertaining, and again, like you said, very refreshing to hear that side of it. You know, like masturbation from a woman's perspective. I thought that was pretty entertaining.
That was a great scene, yeah. But just being able to be comfortable enough to talk about it.
Right.
I think that's a great sign and definitely made a better movie because they could be real.
Yes, exactly. And now thinking about it, you know, with the room for improvisation, like how much of it was improv and how much of it was off the page, something tells me it's about a 50-50. I feel like there's a lot of the script that is definitely on screen, and then there's a lot of the rewriting, if you will, from the cast in this movie. Olivia Wilde has described this movie as the training day of high school movies. So we're bringing another one of my picks into the mix, talking about this movie.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. Calm down.
I don't know if I'd go that far either, but I thought it was kind of cool that she mentioned training day at least.
Yes, you are a big fan of that movie.
Hell yeah. And I'm a big fan of Olivia Wilde as well, because for those of you that have been listening from the beginning know that I have also had the pleasure of working with Olivia Wilde on a very small movie called Bickford Schmeckler's Cool Ideas, starring Patrick Fugit, Olivia Wilde, Matthew Lillard, and John Cho. That was a lot of fun. Her and I got along very well. I met her on my first day at Crafty. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and then get to watch her career really skyrocket after that, because she's been in a shit ton of good movies. And she's directed a couple other movies too, which I don't think you've seen Don't Worry, Darling yet. Have you seen Don't Worry, Darling?
I haven't seen it yet, no.
Oh, okay, yeah. I enjoyed it with Harry Styles. I thought that was a really cool movie. And again, Olivia Wilde, her acting career, she was in Alpha Dog, a brutal movie with Anton Yelchin and Sharon Stone and Bruce Willis and Justin Timberlake and Emile Hirsch. I think that movie's great, but I don't know how often I could watch that one.
Yes, it's based on a true story.
Yeah, really fucked up true story, that's for sure. She's also in another movie with Justin Timberlake that I really enjoy, and my wife turned me on to it, called In Time. I thought that movie was super badass. I've watched it a few times. If you haven't seen In Time, give it a shot. It's really trippy. And she's also in the sequel to Tron Legacy, which is a badass movie as well. She's just a badass in general, Olivia Wilde. So hats off to Miss Olivia Wilde, and I hope we get another movie from you soon. This movie is also on the 1001 Movies to See Before You Die list, which I thought was pretty sweet to find out. Of course, I would show this movie to anybody that would be interested. I very much enjoy this movie. I don't know why I don't own it yet, but that's going to change very soon.
Yeah, definitely one worth adding to your collection.
Absolutely. And again, we don't do a lot of comedies here, but every time we do, it makes me want to do more. So
too.
we likely will be, after Christmas, even though we're going to be doing some comedies during our Christmas season this year, some interesting comedies I can't wait to get into. I'm very much looking forward to jumping into some more comedy next year.
Me too.
Sweet. This movie ended up coming out on May 24th of 2019. It was released by Annapurna Pictures, which unfortunately does not exist anymore.
I was wondering when I saw the opening credits of this movie.
Yeah, they actually they produced a whole bunch of movies between the year 2010 and like 2019. And then they just kind of vanished, and it was really unfortunate because they had a pretty good track record. They did a movie called Kajillionaire, which I actually mentioned not too long ago when we were discussing Evan Rachel Wood. They did the film Spring Breakers, which I heard was a good movie. I never did see that one, though.
Yeah, me either, but I have heard good things.
Yeah. They did Everybody Wants Some, which is the sequel to Dazed and Confused by Richard Linklater. They did Foxcatcher, which you've told me to check out, which I still need to. They also produced the Jennifer Lopez-led Hustlers, which was not a terrible movie. I actually enjoyed that one quite a bit. My wife is a big J-Lo fan, so of course we had to watch it, and I'm not going to turn down watching J-Lo dance on a stripper pole or anything like that.
Of course you're not.
No. They did the fantastic Guy Pearce, Tom Hardy, and Shia LaBeouf Lawless, which is a killer movie.
It's so good.
Yes. They did one of Daniel Day-Lewis's final films, Phantom Thread. They also did If Beale Street Could Talk, American Hustle, Vice, Her, and the hysterically raunchy computer-animated food movie Sausage Party, written by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg.
One of the worst movies I've ever seen.
I saw it in theaters and I laughed my entire ass off, but I've not seen it since, so I don't know if it would hold up. This movie was produced on a $6 million budget, pretty modest budget. The U.S. gross ended up coming in at $22.6 million, so pretty good U.S. intake. Yeah, the worldwide gross was $24.9 million, which is also really, really good. And there was a bit of controversy with Delta Airlines around the time that this movie came out. Delta Airlines decided to delete a lot of the lesbian dialogue and certain sex scenes in this movie. Olivia Wilde ended up finding this out through Twitter, got in touch with corporate of Delta Airlines because she was really upset about that. I mean, why wouldn't you be? I completely disagree with what Delta wanted to do with censoring this movie, because if you think about it, there's no one screen on flights anymore. You get your own little screen and you can choose what you want to watch, and I've never, to be completely frank, I've never watched an edited movie on a plane since like 2004.
Well, and there are a ton of movies on airlines that have sex scenes on them that have not been edited because they're heterosexual sex scenes. So that's bullshit.
Exactly. Yeah, quite bullshit. So after she got in touch with corporate, they ended up reversing their whole issue and released the movie back on Delta Airlines, completely uncut and R-rated.
Good.
So hats off there to you, Delta Airlines, for coming through and keeping R-rated comedies alive.
Well, hats off to Olivia Wilde for fighting for it.
That as well, yes, of course. Fight for your art, Mm-hmm. Now, we have done the year 2019 before, but, V, I'm curious if you might remember a couple of the highest grossing films of 2019. Now, I'm sure you know the first one, since it was supposed to be the end of the game that was the Marvel movies, but apparently it's not, because we have 14,000 other Marvel movies and TV shows out now. So Endgame was the number one movie. V, I'm curious if you could tell me what the fifth highest grossing movie was. We discussed it last week when we discussed the movie that we each saw last week. It involves Marvel, but that's all you get as your hint.
Was that Captain Marvel?
That was Captain Marvel, the fifth highest grossing film of 2019. And my gosh, Disney and Marvel were all up in 2019's ass, because not only was it Endgame at number 1, Captain Marvel was number 5, number 6 was The Rise of Skywalker, number 7 was Spider-Man Far From Home, number 8 was Aladdin, number 2 was the atrociously non-live action version of The Lion King. Ugh. Number 3 was Frozen 2, which I actually am a very big fan of. And number 4 was Toy Story 4.
Holy
Top 10 movies of 2019 pretty much belong to Disney and Marvel. Basically Disney.
Basically Disney, which is why I would argue Disney has a monopoly at this point, and they need to break up that entire studio.
Yes, indeed.
Holy
The ninth
shit.
highest grossing film was the Joaquin Phoenix-led Joker, which I am a big fan of. I love that movie. I'm very excited for the sequel with Lady Gaga being involved. The 10th highest grossing film, It Chapter 2, which I think is a fantastic sequel to the first fantastic remake of It. The 18th highest grossing film, my second favorite Quentin Tarantino film, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, I didn't know it was your second favorite of his.
Yes, Inglourious Bastards, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Those are the top two Tarantino films for me.
I guess you like Brad Pitt partnering with Tarantino.
Very much so, yes. And DiCaprio, of course. The 25th highest grossing film was Godzilla, King of the Monsters. I love that movie.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, well, next time you're here, we'll have to watch it because it's awesome.
Okay.
The 23rd highest grossing film, Angelina Jolie and Michelle Pfeiffer in Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. Awesome sequel. Great time.
I love her in that role.
Oh, yeah. I watched, my wife and I watched the sequel the sequel to Maleficent on our honeymoon on our Disney cruise ship in the middle of the Caribbean Ocean. It was awesome.
You really help Disney along, don't you?
Oh, we certainly do. The 32nd highest grossing film, your pick for when we did our musical movies, Rocket Man.
God, that movie's so good.
So good. The 33rd highest grossing film, my second pick at Movies You Miss Podcast, Alita, Battle Angel.
Oh, yeah, which there's more and more rumors of a sequel.
I know, can't wait. The 37th highest grossing film was Yesterday, which was the Beatles kind of movie with Lily James. It was okay. It was directed by Danny Boyle. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, it was okay, and then the end kind of made it lame.
Yeah,
I
exactly. The 71st highest grossing film was Crawl, which is directed by Alexander Aja, which I think is a great movie. I watched it around this Halloween. Great creature feature about giant alligators in Florida.
Oh, we should partner that with like Lake Placid or something.
Yeah, Crawl is better, but Lake Placid is pretty entertaining. 78th highest grossing film, Emily Blunt and Lin-Manuel Miranda and Ben Whishaw and Emily Mortimer and Dick Van Dyke in a cameo, Mary Poppins Returns.
Aww.
The 87th highest grossing film, Ari Aster's second feature film, Midsummer. Fucking love that movie. And the 97th highest grossing film of 2019. My pick for this week, Booksmart.
Top 100.
Top 100,
Damn.
yes. Scratching the top 100. I love it. So that is Booksmart. If you would like to check it out, you can rent it on Amazon or Apple. You can also watch it on Freevee. There will be commercials. Do check it out. It's fantastic. It is hysterical from beginning to end. It's also got a lot of heart. I definitely had a couple of choked up moments. I also think the end is awesome. So
Yes.
check it out. Now, V, I think we should rewind 24 years and go back and hang out with some clueless high school girls.
I think that's a good idea.
Sweet.
And if you can't guess the movie from John's very obvious hints, I picked 1995's Clueless.
As if.
That's right. Starring Alicia Silverstone, Paul Rudd, Brittany Murphy, Donald Faison, Dan Hedaya, who we're big fans of on this podcast,
Yeah.
Wallace Shawn, and a whole host of other 90s actors.
Yes, indeed.
Clueless, like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, is a staple teen comedy, I think.
Oh, most definitely, yes. I was never a big fan of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, though.
Me either.
Yeah, didn't like it. I loved the Phoebe Cates moment, but other than that, the movie's terrible.
You're a dude.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Sure.
I also have never been a big fan of Sean Penn, so that probably is another reason.
Yeah.
So Clueless, for anyone who hasn't watched it yet, follows the high school life of Cher, a very popular high school student in Beverly Hills in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
She is not only popular, but very rich. Well, her dad is.
Yeah.
And so she goes to a really nice, hoity-toity, richy-rich high school. All of her friends are rich and are just as popular as she is. The movie starts out like yours, with Cher picking up her best friend Dion, played by Stacey
Yeah.
Dash, on their way to high school. But Cher immediately admits that she doesn't have her driver's license.
I know. So funny. You just blew through a stop sign. I totally paused.
Oh, God, the lines in this movie are so iconic. It also has a pretty epic 90s soundtrack, too.
Oh, that's for sure.
And so we follow Cher and her friends through their high school lives as they navigate grades, friendships, relationships, gossip, all of the popular kid activities that you do while you're in high school.
Definitely.
And one of the things that Cher and Dion do is accept a new student named Ty into their social circle.
Mm-hmm.
Ty is played by Brittany Murphy, and she is absolutely a fish out of water, and Cher and Dion think it's a great idea to give her a makeover.
Yeah.
I love this movie, but I certainly didn't relate to its main characters at all.
Oh,
When
definitely
I was
not.
growing
No.
up, I was not fashion forward. I was not popular. I was none of the things that Cher and Dion were, and I would probably just have been friends with the gym teacher at this high school. But they seem like they have good hearts and good intentions. One of the things that Cher wants to do is set up her debate teacher and another one of her teachers because they've both been giving her bad grades. And Cher thinks that it's because they're not getting laid and don't have a relationship.
I love that scene when she's at dinner with her dad and he goes, "Where's your report card?" She goes, "Oh, it's not ready yet." She's like, "What do you mean it's not ready yet?"
And her social circle also has another addition, her former stepbrother Josh, played by the immortal Paul Rudd.
Yeah, definitely.
This is his first movie.
Oh, no shit. That's cool.
Uh-huh. Her dad, Mel, was married to his mom for like 20 minutes. And her dad famously says, "You divorced the woman, not the kid." So he's still really nice to Josh and allows him in his home and is really taking him under his wing because now Josh is actually in college and studying to be a lawyer like Cher's dad, Mel, played by Dan Hedaya.
There we go.
And in the midst of all this, Cher and Ty are actually looking for love too. Dion is not because she's with Murray, played by Donald Faison. Anybody
Yes.
who watches Scrubs will know that's Turk.
Yeah.
And so they're in their little dramatic high school relationship, but Cher and Ty are not seeing anyone yet, and they're also looking for love. And one day, a boy comes into class named Christian. He's gorgeous, he dresses well, and Cher thinks, oh man, maybe this is the guy for me, and they start hanging out a whole lot. And at one point, they go out and Cher comes down the stairs in this gorgeous white dress. And her dad, Mel, who's working on a case with a bunch of other guys, goes, "Cher, get in here. What the hell is that?" And this whole scene where Christian picks her up is hilarious. Just listen to this.
Hey, man. Nice pile of bricks you got here.
You drink?
No, thanks. I'm cool.
I'm not offering. I'm asking you if you drink. You think I give alcohol to teenage drivers taking my daughter out?
Hey, man, the protective vibe, I dig.
What's with you, kid? You think the death of Sammy Davis left an opening in the Rat Pack?
Christian.
Doll face.
Handsome.
Stunning.
You're not letting her go out like that, are you?
Cher, get in here.
What's up, Daddy?
What the hell is that?
A dress.
Says who?
Calvin Klein.
It looks like underwear. Go upstairs and put something over it.
I was just going to.
Hey, you. Anything happens to my daughter, I got a 45 and a shovel. I doubt anybody would miss you.
That was so good.
So good. Yes, there are so many great lines in this movie. And so Cher and Christian go out. And at one point, he actually comes over to her house when her dad isn't home. And he says he wants to come over and watch movies. And of course, Cher thinks, oh my gosh, this is it. I'm going to hook up with Christian. We're going to be boyfriend and girlfriend. And I'm actually going to lose my virginity. And Christian's like, yeah, let's watch Some Like It Hot.
Yes,
Which we've covered on this show.
we have.
And what's the other movie that he wants to watch, John?
Sporadicus.
Yes.
It's so funny, too, when I watched this movie as a kid, even up until, like, I think my early teens, I was like, Sporadicus, what the fuck? And then, of course, like, they're showing the screen, and it didn't register to me that it was fucking Spartacus.
Spartacus.
The Stanley Kubrick epic with Kirk Douglas.
And Tony Curtis.
That's right, and Tony Curtis, yes.
Who is also in Some Like It Hot, who is also Jamie Lee Curtis's father.
Yes, indeed. So awesome.
So unfortunately, his taste in movies, his fashion style, his behavior, it's not giving Cher any indication because, of course, she's clueless.
Indeed.
It turns out Christian's gay. He's not going to try to sleep with her. And she's a little broken up about it, but she realizes quickly that at least she can have a shopping buddy.
Yes, and I like how Murray like drops it on him. He's like, he's gay, and they're like, no, not even. He's like, yes, even. And they got it so right too. Even back then, like the old woman flipping him off. It's like,
It's
so
so
perfect.
classic, yeah. And so once again, Cher is left single and still looking for love. And one of her lines is, because there's a lot of voiceover in this movie, which I actually really enjoy. And Alicia Silverstone does a great job at it. And Cher says, searching for a boy in high school is as useless as searching for meaning in a Pauly Shore movie.
Oh, that's one of my favorite lines. So good.
Oh, God. Yes, there are so many good quotes. And there's also a lot of great LA references. So one weekend they go up to a party, but it's a party in the valley. And the conversations about how far away it is and how much of a pain in the ass and how the cops are going to shut it down before we can even get there is so accurate for people who live in LA. It's so funny.
Yeah, if you live over the hill past Studio City off the 101, there's no fucking way you're going to the valley.
Oh, hell no. And I also like the back and forth between her and Josh because they do play off each other like siblings in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things Cher says to him is, oh, you're in your post-adolescent idealistic phase, because he's all righteous and trying to get through all these causes and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, when I was in my 20s, I was so idealistic and really trying to change the world. I totally get it. It's so
definitely.
Accurate.
Yeah, and he was giving her shit for watching Beavis and Butthead. Which,
by the way, do you know what episode that was?
No, I don't.
That episode was called The Great Cornholio.
Nice.
Of course. And there are a lot of quotes that I still use from this movie, even to this day. This movie's almost 30 years old.
I know, it's crazy to think about.
There's a girl in Cher's class named Amber who is a little bit of her nemesis.
Just a little bit. She's the one in PE. It's like, I have a letter from my plastic surgeon. I can't have balls thrown at my face.
Well, there goes your social life.
As a kid, I just didn't get that one.
Me either.
Definitely get it these days.
Same. And the other line Cher uses to talk about Amber is, oh, she's a total Monet.
Yeah, she's a full-on Monet. What's a Monet? It's like the painting, see? From far away, it's okay, but up close, it's a big old mess.
Almost 30 years later, still funny.
Oh, definitely.
And this movie is actually still relevant to today because 90s fashion is back.
Oh, it definitely is.
And watching this movie this week, I have seen a bunch of these outfits in stores again recently. It's insane.
It's pretty nuts how things kind of revert back to certain times.
Fashion is a cycle.
Yes, indeed. Although I never had any fashion sense.
Me either. Oh, my God.
My wife still has to clothe me.
My sister needs to help me.
More so with the color scheme, because sometimes I'll wear gray shorts with a gray shirt, and yeah, she gives me a lot of shit for that.
And this, folks, is why we have a podcast, not a YouTube channel. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, this movie is actually based on a famous work of literature. It is based on Jane Austen's Emma.
Yes. I've seen the Gwyneth Paltrow Emma, and I've seen the Anya Taylor-Joy Emma, and I gotta tell you, I like the Anya Taylor-Joy Emma a lot better.
Hell yes. It's
that
so
one was
good.
Really good.
It's really good. Highly recommend it.
Highly.
And this movie was shot in 40 days.
40 days. Wow. That's a bit surprising. Maybe it's because of all the location shooting, but I did not think that 40 days would have been the production schedule for this movie.
Really?
Yeah, I thought maybe at least 20, 25 days, not 40. But
yeah.
There's a lot of overnight action, too.
There's a lot of overnight. There's a lot of background, big background.
That's true.
Because they're
Very
filming
true.
at a
Very
high
true.
school.
Yeah.
So I could see how logistically it'd take a bit longer.
I guess that's true. I don't know. It's interesting. You know, like I did a lot of TV shows in high school. I did the MTV show Awkward for a couple of seasons, and we always had 300-400 background because a lot of times we were shooting on campuses, and you know we had to direct the background, and we would get a huge background sequence done. And I guess, granted, you know, in a 30-minute TV show, you're only shooting a page and a half for that scene, so it wasn't like we needed 12 hours to shoot, you know, one scene.
Whereas in Clueless, they're at the high school all the time.
Right, yeah.
Days and days of shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And at that high school, Alicia Silverstone actually did not know how to pronounce the word Haitians for her debate class.
So, okay, like right now, for example, the Haitians need to come to America.
That's authentic, huh?
It is.
Wow.
Yes, director Amy Heckerling told the crew not to correct her because she liked it so much she wanted it in the movie.
Perfect.
Yes. And Alicia Silverstone, a lot of you might recognize her from not only the atrocious Batman and Robin.
Oh, yeah.
She plays Batgirl in it. But also a movie that you're a big fan of, Blast from the Past.
Yes, I love that movie.
With Brendan Fraser.
And Christopher Walken and Sissy Spacek.
That's right.
Great flick.
But I bet that's not where you first noticed her.
Oh, definitely not. No. Nope. I noticed her in the Aerosmith music video, Crazy.
That's right. She's been in a ton of Aerosmith music videos, actually.
Yes, she has. Mostly from the Get a Grip album, which is a great Aerosmith record.
Nice. And most recently, you can watch her in the movie Reptile that's on Netflix right now with Benicio del Toro.
Hang on a second. They're in a new movie together?
Yes.
Did you ever see Excess Baggage?
They were in an old movie together, exactly.
Wow. I got to watch Reptile. I didn't even know that movie existed. Granted, I don't pay attention to Netflix, but I might have to give that one a shot.
I've been hearing pretty good things. I hear it's weird, so you might like it.
I might. It's Benicio.
Yeah, exactly.
Love the guy.
Yes. And Paul Rudd, as I mentioned, plays Josh. We spoke about him very early on in our podcast because he plays Paris in Romeo and Juliet from episode 4.
Ah, yes, that's right. That's right.
He's such a geek in that movie.
Yeah.
He's also in a terrible Jennifer Aniston rom-com called Object of My Affection.
Oh my gosh, I remember that one. I never saw it, though.
And he also is... which I think was the start of his renaissance. He was an Anchorman as Brian Fontana.
Yeah. Not a fan of the Anchorman movie.
I know. I think it's hilarious.
I just don't understand why, but that's the beautiful thing about this podcast.
And comedy.
And comedy.
He also is in the 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yes, he's great in that.
And that movie's hilarious.
Yes, it really is.
And Role Models.
Oh, I just put on Role Models. I think it was about a month ago. It was on HBO. And I was like, I'm going to watch this one again. That movie is gut-busting hilarity.
Yes.
I love that movie.
Oh, God. When he is ordering a cup of coffee.
Oh, yeah.
We also brought him up in episode 59 because he was in my pick for Getting Sarah Marshall.
Hell yes. It's Kunu.
Kunu! He's the surf instructor. He, of course, is Ant-Man in the MCU series.
I like the first one.
Me too. But because he's Ant-Man, he also narrates a nature series on Apple TV called Tiny World.
Oh, yeah. I started watching that when we had an Apple TV subscription, but unfortunately it has run out. So I might have to figure out a way to get another one.
They're also raising their prices, which is shitty.
Yeah.
But Tiny World is my favorite nature documentary that is not narrated by David Attenborough. I love that series. It's so good.
Very cool.
Highly recommend it. And Stacey Dash, who plays Dion, was the oldest cast member in this movie. She was 2 years older than Paul Rudd.
Oh, wow.
She was 29 at the time of shooting.
She was 29 when she played Dion? And then she went on to play Dion in the Clueless spin-off TV series.
Yes.
So what was she, 35 when that one came out?
Exactly.
Good God.
And Brittany Murphy, as I mentioned, plays Ty in this film.
Brittany Murphy.
She was fantastic in Girl Interrupted.
Oh, I never saw that one. I did not actually know she was in that. I thought that was only Winona Ryder and Angelina Jolie.
Oh, yeah. She has a very important role in that movie.
Oh, really? I got to check it out. That was Angelina Jolie's first Oscar.
Mm-hmm. It was. She's also in 8 Mile.
I never saw that one either. I hear it's great.
It is great, and she's good in it as well.
Nice.
Sin City, I know you've seen that.
Hell yes. Oh, I love her in Sin City.
She was also in your pick of Spun.
Yes, as Nikki. That's my favorite role of hers.
She's also been in some really good comedies. I loved her in Just Married with Ashton Kutcher.
That was actually really fucking funny.
It really was.
That one was really funny.
Yeah. I think Ashton Kutcher's accidental marriage movies are actually really good because he did that, and then also What Happens in Vegas with Cameron Diaz.
That is so fucking funny. I actually like that one over Just Married.
Me too.
But yeah, I think they're both great. But What Happens in Vegas took me completely by surprise at how fucking funny that movie was.
And I just recently watched it in the last 8 months. It's still funny.
Oh, that's great to hear. I'll have to check that one out again. I loved that movie.
Yes. And Brittany Murphy, before she passed away, did a shit ton of voices for King of the Hill.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
didn't know
I never
that.
watched any King of the Hill. My wife loves that show.
I never watched it either. And as I said, Dan Hedaya plays Cher's dad in this movie, Mel Horowitz.
Yes.
He, of course, was in your very first ever pick on this show.
Yes, he was.
He was in A Life Less Ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
He also is in the classic The Addams Family.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember him in that now.
He plays Tully, their lawyer/accountant.
Right.
He is so good at playing a bad cop.
Oh, hell yeah.
He is a bad cop in The Hurricane.
Mm-hmm. That will be on this podcast for sure.
Oh, good. That's a great movie. And
It is.
he also is a bad cop in Shaft.
I never saw that one.
Oh, that movie's so good and has early Christian Bale and early Toni Collette.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah, that cast was accidentally stacked because they all went on and
Yeah.
just did amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And Dan Hedaya has been in a ton of things. He has 142 credits, and he considers this movie one of his favorite filmmaking experiences,
Oh, wow.
which is awesome.
Out of 142. That's really cool. Damn. Nice job, Amy Heckerling.
Right? And the last actor I wanted to talk about in this film is Mr. Hall, Cher's debate teacher,
Yes.
played by Wallace Shawn. Now, you might not recognize that name. However, he plays Vicini in The Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm.
He says inconceivable a lot.
I know. That's really the way people most recognize him.
Exactly. And you can hear all about that because The Princess Bride was my pick for episode 68.
There you go. That was a good episode.
That was a good episode. Wallace Shawn also is a voice in the Toy Story movies.
He most certainly is.
He voices the dinosaur Rex.
Yes.
He's so
I don't
good.
like confrontations.
He's so good.
Are there any dinosaur-shaped ones? They're all in boxes, you idiot.
The last voice acting role of his that I want to mention is that he is in The Incredibles.
Is he?
He plays Gilbert Huff, his boss.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he does.
He ends up throwing through a wall because he's so pissed.
Oh, that movie is so great.
So good. And according to a book about the film, the costume budget for this movie was $200,000.
Holy shit.
The biggest costume expense was the yellow plaid outfit that Alicia wears throughout a lot of the movie, especially in the opening scenes, right?
Right.
Alicia got to keep her entire wardrobe.
Whoa, that's pretty cool.
She told Entertainment Weekly magazine that she gave it all away to charity,
Damn.
which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah, and Mona May, the costume designer, actually plays Cher's masseuse in the movie.
Oh, that's cool.
So she has a little cameo.
Yeah.
And Paul Rudd, in a couple scenes of this movie, wears a University of Kansas hat,
Yes.
which is kind of random.
Just a little bit. I feel like we're about to find out why, though.
Yes, it's because Paul Rudd himself actually went to the University of Kansas.
Oh, there we go. What a way to rep.
Exactly. He actually
What
majored...
a teacher's pet.
I know, right? No. He actually majored in theater at the University of Kansas.
Interesting.
And he's from Kansas itself.
Oh, really? I actually did not know that Paul Rudd was from Kansas.
Me either. He's
Very cool.
might be one of the most famous people from Kansas.
I would say so. Beyond Dorothy, of course.
Good point. But we actually have a listener from Kansas who's been a very consistent listener for months.
Oh, awesome.
So Kansas listener, whoever you are, let us know if Paul Rudd is the most famous person from Kansas or if we're missing someone.
Yes, that would be awesome. Please do let us know, listener from Kansas.
And as you mentioned, Amy Heckerling is the director of this movie. She's also the writer of this movie.
Fantastic.
And do you know what's funny?
What is?
She directed Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So that's kind of funny tie-in.
Yeah. She got better with age.
She did. We prefer Clueless, as we've discussed.
Indeed.
She also directed European Vacation.
Oh, wow. That one's fucking funny.
It is. She also wrote and directed Look Who's Talking 1 and 2.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wow. She had quite the 90s career.
She did, and she's got some good comedies under her belt.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
And Clueless was ranked number 7 on Entertainment Weekly's 50 Best High School Movies in 2006.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Scratching the top 10. I like that.
So that's Clueless. It's released in 1995. It had a budget of $12 million.
Whoa. 200,000 of which went to the wardrobe department.
Yeah, good point. And the good news is that it made that and more back in the box office. It made over $57 million.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it did great.
I actually saw Clueless for the first time on VHS. A friend of mine's mom had rented it for him to watch. It was at that time of my life where, I had to either mom and dad had to see the movie first before I could watch it because it was PG-13, or I just wouldn't ever get a chance to watch it. So what did I do as a child? I said, hey, let's watch Clueless, but with the volume down so my mom doesn't hear what we're watching. Because, back in the day, there were no cell phones, there was no internet. It was, your parents would go to their friend's house and literally sit there and drink coffee and talk all afternoon.
At the kitchen
and that's
table.
exactly what this was. Yeah, at the kitchen table. And that's what this was. And my buddy and I went down to his room and we watched Clueless. And I remember telling my sister that night, I was like, I watched Clueless. And my sister was so mad because she wanted to see it too. So then I remember telling my mom, I think a few years later, I was like, oh yeah, I remember watching Clueless. She goes, when did you see that? I'm like, oh, I watched it at Corey's house where you and Kate were in the kitchen. She goes, what? I was like, yeah. She goes, I can't believe you watched that. Don't tell your father. I'm like, Mom, it was like 8 years ago and I have it on VHS now. Who cares?
How did you keep the Mighty Mighty Bosstones on low volume?
I know. I love that they're in this movie. And you forgot to mention Jeremy Sisto and Breckin Meyer, by the way.
I did. They are both great 90s actors, and Breckin Meyer has aged very well as well. He's really good looking still.
Oh yeah, I've always liked Breckin Meyer. I'm a big fan of him, especially with his work with Robot Chicken and Seth Green.
Yes, they're good buddies. Well, that's Clueless. You can watch it on either Pluto TV or Paramount Plus.
Nice. I watched it on Paramount Plus.
Me too. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. I have been a fan since I watched it at my buddy's house in the quiet. Also because I thought Alicia Silverstone was a knockout, and even Stacey Dash was really, really beautiful. But at the same time, it just made me laugh, even though, like I said, a lot of the dialogue went over my head. But at the same time, a ditzy blonde from Southern California, I was like, oh, cool, I'm from Southern California, and I'm blonde, but I'm not as ditzy as this girl is. Still an enjoyable movie, and I remember that was my introduction to Brittany Murphy. Pretty much all of these actors, granted this was Paul Rudd's first movie, but yeah, I've been a fan of it since 1995, and I have it on VHS as well. It's definitely in my collection of comedies.
I'm so glad to hear that, and I'm really glad you enjoyed it. And as two people who've just watched it recently, we can tell everyone that it holds up.
Oh yeah, it absolutely does.
I love doing comedies on this show.
Oh, definitely. We will have to do some more soon.
We do. And in the meantime, John, would you watch Booksmart with your grandma?
Oh, definitely not. No. Grandma was not a big fan of the raunchy comedies.
No. There is a little bit of a sex scene in it, but otherwise it's pretty tame. It's just
it's dialogue.
It's raunchy.
Yeah. Raunchy dialogue.
Oh my God.
And V, would you or have you watched Clueless with your grandmother?
I hadn't ever seen it with my grandma. I wouldn't, just because I don't think she'd like it, but it's not raunchy. Especially compared to your movie or Superbad,
yes.
Or
oh yeah,
a lot of the R-rated comedies we picked on this show so far.
Very true. Very true.
It's really tame. It's really sweet. I just don't think my grandma would have found it that funny because the cultural references that she wouldn't have gotten in the 90s.
Sure.
But my sister Shannon loved this movie growing up. She loved the fashion, and she introduced me to this movie. And it's definitely a great movie to introduce to your teenage daughters.
Yeah, I think so. I think I would introduce my nieces to it when they're of old enough age.
Yeah, I would definitely introduce my older niece. She's 14 now. Maybe in a year I'll probably introduce her to this movie.
There you go.
Yeah.
I was 9 when I saw this movie.
Yeah, but my niece is a lot sweeter than you.
Oh, damn. Shots fired. I always like the cover of this movie, too. I remember seeing the poster at the movie theater, and, it's Alicia Silverstone with the cell phone and the red dress, and then
so
Stacey Dash, they're on the staircase, and I'm like, what is this? I got to see this. Mm-hmm. And, of course, it was PG-13, and, yeah.
Had to wait. Well, that is our female high school comedy episode. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And next week is December, so a lot of you know what that means.
Yeah. My favorite month.
That's right. We are doing a month of Christmas movies.
Can't wait to get into the jingle jangle.
And John, what movies are we doing next week?
Well. I'm going completely different than how I started last year's Christmas movies. I'm going raunchy yet again with a very raunchy R-rated comedy starring Billy Bob Thornton, John Ritter, Bernie Mac, and the late and the great Cloris Leachman. This is Bad Santa, everybody.
Yes.
If you would like to follow along, it is on Paramount Plus. Please do. This movie is hysterical.
It is, and you picked that movie because every first week of December on our podcast, I like to pick violent action Christmas movies.
Hell yeah.
And so this year is no different. I picked the very recent David Harbour, John Leguizamo starring Violent Night.
Oh, hell yeah. Leguizamo is back on the podcast.
That's right, and if you want to follow along with us, you can stream Violent Night on Amazon Prime.
I can't wait to see this movie. I wanted to see it in theaters. I just did not get around to it.
I'm so excited to introduce you to this movie.
Me too.
It's so good. So we're sticking with comedies, just adding a bunch of violence and action into them.
Hell yeah.
Looking forward to Christmas with you all. Thank you so much for tuning in, for joining us, for being fans. We love you all and appreciate you as well. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on any app that you use to listen to our episodes. Feel free to reach out to us or interact with us on all social media platforms. And until next week, we love to close out this podcast with film is a form of art, and in art, every opinion is valid, except if you think
you need to wait until after Thanksgiving to start watching Christmas movies.
Ooh, hard disagree.
Oh, no. Right after Halloween, you can start the holiday Christmas movies. That's what I did.
No, I think I'm going to be sticking with fall and Thanksgiving movies in November instead.
All right, I get you. There are still some Thanksgiving-esque type Christmas movies that are around that start at Thanksgiving and then work their way into Christmas. So I think that's a reasonable choice.
Now I'm actually starting to curate some Thanksgiving movies, including the recent horror film Thanksgiving. And I'm
hell yeah.
really enjoying that list.
Absolutely. I am actually going to start watching some Christmas horror movies because I know those exist and I've always kind of shied away from them. I don't know why, but I think I'm going to have to start watching them now, especially Black Christmas and Krampus, because I've not seen Krampus and I hear it's great, but it's probably one of those B movie greats, so I think I'm going to have a really good time with that one.
Nice. Well, that'll definitely prep you for next week's Violent Night.
Indeed. I'm looking forward to that one.
All right. Well, until then, thanks everyone, and bye-bye.
Cheers, everybody.